Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it
Daniel,
going?
how are we?
I'm very good. How's yourself?
Roasting.
It's warm that studio, isn't it?
It's honestly, it's like sauna. And I've overclubbed into it. Look, I've got my big winter woolies on here. So no, but I'll be fine. I'll soldier on.
You're too much of a hard worker. That's what it is.
That's exactly what the problem is.
I think the best place for us to start is at Celtic, because, as we all know by now, Jota is a Celtic player once again. Our colleague Fraser Wilson was there. Before we hear about the day and what Fraser made of it, it's just a remarkable signing for Celtic to pull off, isn't it?
Superb bit of business. It really is. It's you kind of look at it, it's almost unfair. I mean, how have they managed to achieve this? It's ridiculous. And we think, I keep saying it, I keep expecting Kieran Tierney to sign on in this window as well. So, there you go. I mean, it's genius. It's borderline James Bond baddie stuff, innit? How can you flog two guys for 50 million and bring them back when they're not even at their prime yet for buttons? It's just superb bit of business. You've got to take your hat off to Celtic. That's and you know something, serious level. Brendan Rodgers said from day one that he wanted to raise the bar in terms of the quality throughout his squad. And I think that, because the Celtic board have such respect for the manager, that they're, clearly flexing their financial muscles to help him out and assist him in what he's trying to achieve. But to add Kieran Tierney possibly and Jota in one transfer window in January, that's supposed to be a difficult transfer window, isn't it? That's what we keep getting told. They have smashed it out of the park, and we still expect more business to be done before the market shuts. I fully expect Celtic to throw the kitchen sink now at getting a centre forward in, to an oven-ready centre-forward, not an experiment, not a project player, but somebody who's ready to step right into that first team and fill the gap left behind by Kyogo. Obviously, Kyogo's going to be a loss, firm favourite with the Celtic supporters. I'm just a little bit, I think you and I were both expressed our surprise, what's made him decide that now he had to leave and why Rennes. But do you know what? That's entirely his prerogative. Celtic are just cracking on with business, and it's been some business.
I mean, the Rennes thing baffles me, but that's life, innit? And I dare say he's probably getting weighed in, pretty well at Rennes, albeit they're low down in the French league. But there's plenty to talk about with Jota. There's comments coming in which we appreciate. Get them fed in.
There's the proof of the pudding, right? You know that the old phrase, like, the grass is always greener. Mm-hmm. I think Kyogo might just be about to experience that. And there's Jota, who did go away, who mega bucks deal with Saudi Arabia. Things haven't worked. He's not been happy. And I think he spoke at length today about, it feels almost as if he's coming back home, even though he's Portuguese. And I think there's he has had that experience now. He's went away. He's seen what life is like away from a club like Celtic. And he obviously couldn't wait to come back.
I just don't know how you could play in that Champions League game last week and then swap it for Rennes. But look, each to their own. I'm sure he'll be very successful. As I say, comments coming in, get them sent in if you want to get involved in the conversation. We'll also be talking about Stuart Kettlewell. He's obviously resigned as Motherwell manager today. It's a bad one.
We were talking about that last night, and I said to you, Daniel, that my worry was that it might be getting to a stage where it becomes really toxic between Stuart Kettlewell and the Motherwell fans, and I didn't think that he deserved that. Mm-hmm. And then subsequently you hear today that, as the club very reluctantly, I think was the word in the statement, have accepted his resignation, and it's because of abuse levels that is making his family feel uncomfortable. They can't, they will no longer want to attend games. It just doesn't feel right, does it? It feels it's very unedifying. And Stuart Kettlewell's done a great job for Motherwell. I think it's a real shame the way that's ended. But something? Good luck to him. He's been brave enough to say, right, you know what? I'm not going to tolerate this. And it's going to be fascinating to see where Motherwell will go to next. Now that the hunt for a manager's on, there's some interesting names floating around, as I'm sure we'll discuss later in the show.
Aye, we will touch on that and plenty more later in the show. We'll answer all your questions and comments too, get them fired in. But for now, let's.
And by the way,
right.
our contributors can why don't they throw some names at us?
Aye, of course. Aye.
Because there are some names floating around, but maybe our faithful loyal army of what do we call them? Contributors, watchers. I don't know. What is this? A show? Yeah, I guess it is. Well, send your suggestions in. And let's...
Well, already your pal Gianni, Neil Francis Lennon, John saying Neil Lennon as well.
Yeah, and I think he is one of the 4 favourites that have been installed already this afternoon by the bookies. Yeah, we'll discuss all that. I'm sure Neil Lennon would jump at the chance.
Yeah. For the meantime, we caught up with Fraser Wilson earlier on, who was at Jota's press conference today, and let's hear what he had to say. We're joined now by Record Sports' Fraser Wilson, all the way from the Celtic way. Fraser, you've been listening to Jota's homecoming today. What sort of form was he in?
Good form. I think he took one look at this weather here and said, "Nice seeing you again. I'm back off. I'm back off to France." He's in good form. He's always a colourful character. One thing I can say for certain is he's delighted to be back and he can't wait to be out there performing again in front of those fans that adored him for 2 years. But he did say that he's not near 100% fit due to his lack of minutes in the last couple of years. Certainly this season as well over in Rennes. So it's going to take him a little time to get up to speed, but he's raring to go. Obviously, can't play at Villa Park on Wednesday night anyway, so he's got a few extra days to get those fitness levels up. But yeah, certainly happy to be back here and ready to go on a 5.5-year contract. Incredible.
It's just a remarkable story all round, isn't it? It's just one of those things that one of those quirks that football throws up. I don't know anybody that really expected, when Jota disappeared to Saudi Arabia, that he'd be back 18 months later and Celtic are picking him up for relative buttons. It's an incredible bit of business.
That is. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? I think you're losing me completely with the rain here. I need window wipers on this camera.
It looks like you're broadcasting from a foreign planet.
Can you still see me?
I can see an outline of you, shadow.
Wilson.
I've got to be honest, Brad. It's the best you've looked in a while, mate.
Thank you very much. Aye, thank you very much. This is how I looked myself looking in the mirror before I got these specs. But look, business models don't get much better than that, do they? Selling a guy 18 months ago for 25 million. That was that equaled the record sale just a year and a half ago. Getting them back now. As he's still to probably reach his peak years, he's only 25. Yeah. Getting them back for 8.5-9 million. It's an incredible business. Look, throw into the fact they might yet get Kieran Tierney back for free. They probably will. Who also left for 25 million. There's 2 players you can get back in the door for best part of 9 million. A 41 million pound profit, and both of them probably still coming into their peak years. It's absolutely sensational.
They've absolutely smashed the life out of this window, that's for sure. And in terms, Fraser, we don't think that'll be the end. I'm fairly sure that Brendan Rodgers will have his eye on getting a striker in the door as well before the market shuts down next week.
Yeah, but speaking to him on Friday ahead of the weekend game there, he did say that is the weekend game that never went ahead right enough, but he did say he needs a striker in this window. That's the priority now. Even when it was suggested, well, Dyson Maeda move through the middle, now he can play Jota out on the left, he says, no, I want another striker. So that is number one priority, I think, to find a Kyogo replacement, because it was one of a kind, wasn't it, Kyogo? So as much as it's good business getting £10 million for a 30-year-old, it definitely leaves a hole. The wee guy leaves a big hole there. So they're obviously pushing for Brøndby's Matthias Kvistgaarten. Always struggled with that pronunciation, and I'm sure there's a few other irons in the fire as well. So I would not be surprised at all to see a new striker come in before next Monday's deadline.
There was another bit of use. Obviously, there's been interest in Louis Barry at Villa, but it looks very much as if he's about to go on loan to Hull, and that Villa don't want to, to do a deal to sell him on a permanent basis.
Villa seem to have big big hopes for this boy. They're not keen to let him go out permanently at all, are they? So that news breaking this morning, that I take it it's not going through yet, then that Hull are very close to closing a loan deal for him.
I think he's done a medical.
Fraser, yeah.
Right, there you go then. That will go through. I don't know if that's one Celtic have to move on from now. 21-year-old, he wouldn't be the finished product if he had come in here right now anyway. So I think they'll have to move on to other targets now. And look, Celtic work 1.5, 2 windows ahead, don't they? So they'll have plenty of irons in the fire. It's just a case of who they can get in, what deal they can get done. But with this money in the bank now, then that certainly shouldn't be an issue.
Fraser, I wrote a column today based around Celtic's business in the transfer window, and this is as good a window as I can remember for any Scottish club. Actually, the prospect of bringing 2 players back, £50 million worth of sales behind them, and you bring them back in for buttons. You've got Jota and Kieran Tierney, the prospect of them teaming up on the left wing. You've got Nicholas Kuhn and Alistair Johnson doing something similar on the right. I actually look at this just now and I feel Celtic are putting on the afterburners. I think it's almost an unbridgeable gap that they're starting to build, and they were already pretty well ahead of Rangers. So that is the, we want a competitive league and all that. You kind of feel that Celtic are disappearing over the horizon here.
Certainly in terms of that business model we keep talking about, the money they keep raking in allows them to just keep improving that quality of player, which Brendan Rodgers said all along. Remember, after the Lazio game, which more or less brought last season's Champions League campaign to a pretty miserable end, he repeatedly said he needed better quality in last January. Since then, I do feel like they've stepped things up. I mean, the quality of this Celtic squad now compared to then, it's almost incomparable. And as you said there, the deals they're getting done, that's the worrying thing for Rangers as well, who off the park as well as on it just can't match them. No. Now, obviously Rangers won that last Old Firm game, but Philip Clement must look at the kind of dealing Celtic are doing and just shake his head and think, how on earth do we match that over the period of a season? It's fine doing it in one-off games. It's pretty impressive doing it in the last 2 Old Firm games, to be fair, where I think they matched them in the cup final and lost in penalty kicks, and nobody will argue they got the better of them in the game at Ibrox. But over, what do they call it? It's a marathon, no, a sprint. Over the marathon of a season, how do you compete with that financial might that Celtic have got and the quality they've got right throughout their team? As you say, it's really hard to see anyone catching them right now.
This is the amazing thing for me. We all know that Celtic have got loads of money, oodles of cash, and they've had it for but what I don't think people envisaged was being able to sign players of this quality. Kieran Tierney's still only 27, Jota's 25. They're players with who have been sold for £25 million each. That was always a tricky bit. You might have loads of money, but how do you go about recruiting guys worth that value? In the transfer market, they've won an absolute watch. It's really, really smart stuff.
It's the age of the players. I think everyone expected one day Kieran Tierney would probably come back to Celtic, but it's probably
when he was 34.
Exactly, and finish his days here. So if that deal goes through, it might be the summer. Whenever that goes through, I don't think it'll be a surprise to see him back. But the age that he comes back at, hopefully, is fully fit as well. Yeah. That's the big deal for Celtic fans. They should be getting him coming into his prime, as I keep saying. Jota didn't have that boyhood affinity with Celtic, so that's probably an even bigger deal. I always thought he was the type of guy that would maybe like to see the world, to travel about, that colourful kind of character. So whatever has convinced him to come back here, Brendan Rodgers being one of the main reasons, it's a fantastic bit of business. And if they can get a striker in to play in between Jota, Nicholas Kuhn or Maeda, it really is a frightening prospect for the rest of Scottish football.
Fraser, thanks so much for joining us on the Hotline Live. We really appreciate it. You get yourself to your nearest phone repair shop. I think that's an order.
Thank you very much. Need to get windscreen wipers and these specs as well.
Cheers, Fraser. Safe travels home.
See you later. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
To
say, Keith, that Fraser would be better with 2 cans and a bit of string than the current phone he's got.
Do you know, do you remember that? 2 bean cans and a bit of string, that's it, isn't it? But I'll tell you, I repeat, that's as good as I've seen him look in a while.
Well, look, plenty of comments coming in on Jota, and I should say, Rangers fans, we've got a little bit of interesting transfer news involving your club, which we're going to bring up very soon. But we'll finish off on Jota first. Let me hit you with a few of these comments, Keith. Paul here saying, considering what we paid for Kyogo and what we sold him for, pretty much getting Jota for free, which is incredible business. Kieran Conley, so glad he's back. One of the best players I've seen for us in all my lifetime. He loves the club, the fans, and he's a perfect Celtic player and entertainer. This one, though, coming in, obviously, in the striker, John Watt saying Celtic needs a striker. Ida and Maeda are not the quality to start on a regular basis up front. And weirdly, praise for the Celtic board, which is rare. Celtic board seem to be learning from the mistakes they made in Brendan's first spell. And there's just this one as well. Sorry, the comments are coming in too fast for me to keep up with, Keith. This was not often said, but well done, Mr. Lawwell.
Can't argue, can you?
No.
I mean, it's a really, really, really superbly run football club. And the thing is that what people need to understand is, because it's always, they're squirreling money, they're not spending. This Celtic board realise that, it's not all about the bottom line. It's not all about what's sitting in the bank account. They realise that they have to put they have to get the product right on the pitch. And they're showing their ambition in the deals that they're doing here. They're giving Brendan Rodgers an incredibly talented squad that he's managing to build together there. But it's been done because Celtic are so well run financially. They're capable of doing these deals, and they've taken advantage of a situation with these two players in particular. There's an emotional lure, a pull that's it's a gravitational pull that's bringing them back. It's just exceptional bit of business. It really is. Yes, the loss of Kyogo will be a sore one for Celtic supporters. But I tell you what, you would never have envisaged the situation where Kyogo was sold in January and Celtic fans are happier at the end of the window than they were at the start of it, because that's the situation that Celtic are engineering here. It's really clever stuff, as I said.
Some more comments coming in on it. This one from Dan, which is a fair point. You forget that Celtic gave 8 million in the 25 to Benfica. I mean, even so, the profit is still huge. This one, Jota's one big move, and will likely make a second profit on him in 2 or 3 years, as you said, Keith.
That's probably very
25. He's only 25. But are you a wee bit surprised by Jota's decision to come back? I mean, I imagine he could have made a lot of money elsewhere. Still, as we say, still very young.
Still going, but is he happy?
Aye, that's it. Aye.
Millions in the bank. Well, he's went away. Look, I was pretty surprised that he went to Saudi Arabia in the first place. A young guy, full career in front of him. I think he's realised that was a bit of a howler. He shouldn't have done it, and he's managed to get back to Celtic, and he can kickstart again and pick up from where he left off. So that's a good move. It's a good move for him. He enjoyed himself. He was revered by the supporters. You're about to realise that relationship, the bond, is still there. They'll be desperate to see him back out in a Celtic shirt again. I just think it makes real sense, and it's possibly an admission that maybe he shouldn't have been in a rush to leave in the first place, particularly to Saudi Arabia. I think if Jota hits top form, as you would expect him to, if he rediscovers the sort of form he had first time round, you're right, the English Premier League will be looking. And that's probably where his next step should have been. I think he's made a backward step, a mistake. He obviously regrets it. But he's back where he feels loved. And he will be loved for as long as he stays. Long contract. Not sure that he'll see it out. I think, that might be correct. It might be 2-3 seasons. And then, he can look at the next step. But the next step won't be a retrograde step. It will be, to a proper football country and a proper league, you would imagine.
Yeah. Just before we move on from Celtic, Keith, getting a lot of questions asking you about Kieran Tierney. Now, I know you mentioned it earlier in the show, and you still expect him to become a Celtic player, but just to kind of firm that up, you do think by February, I think it's the 3rd deadline day, Kieran Tierney will be a Celtic player again?
There are some imponderables, aren't there? Because there seems to be a suggestion that Zinchenko might be heading from Arsenal and going. I think we're talking about Italy and Spain, some big clubs looking at Zinchenko. Now, if that happens, would Arteta put the brakes on? Any sort of deal that would allow Kieran Tierney to leave in January? Possible. But, Arteta doesn't seem that mad keen on Kieran Tierney for some reason. So, let's see. And I'd put it this way. I am well aware that Celtic want the deal done and that they are, negotiating. And I think if it suits all three parties, then I still expect it to go through before. When is it? Next Monday?
Yep, next Monday, I believe. Yeah, the 3rd, I think. Your mate in the comment section, Keith. Gianni. Keith, what would you have done if the same thing, Daniel, if the Saudi papers were chasing him? So I think he's asking if the Saudis were after me, would you have accepted a bid?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Moving on. It
wouldn't even have to be much, Daniel, to be honest.
That's outrageous. That's absolutely outrageous. There you go. There you go, Gianni. You've got your answer. And if anyone's out there, bids are welcome.
Oh, stop being bruised.
Right. We teased a little bit of Rangers transfer news, Keith. This has come in literally as we've been on air. Record Sports' Andy Newport is filing a story saying that he understands that Chelsea are among a number of clubs to contact Yefty's agent and express interest in the Rangers left back. Now, he does state in his piece that will be on Record Sport Online now, he does state that there's been no contact with Rangers as yet, but Chelsea are definitely one of the clubs that has been in touch with his agent, saying that they're keeping an eye on the 21-year-old. So, pretty remarkable.
Yeah, look, I think the information was sort of leaked out in Brazil.
Yeah.
Because his former club have got a sell on. So I don't know if this is somebody trying to drum up business. Look, Jeffy's done fine. He's not a bad signing at all. He's played a lot of games. There are moments when he's really flaky defensively, but he's made a decent impact. I'll be astonished if a Chelsea was ready to come in and break the bank for him at this point. But it is interesting. Clearly, moves are afoot. It's a strange one that Chelsea haven't spoken directly to Rangers clearly. But the agent's obviously making himself quite busy, so that's certainly one to keep an eye on. Be fascinating to see if something solid comes out of that over the next few days. What do Rangers do about it? I would rather imagine that if they can turn a quick profit on him, they probably would. They've still got Yilmaz, and I'm sure that their scouting network is already looking for alternative options. I think if they'll still be at Rangers by the end of the window, but let's see. Interesting.
It's an interesting one indeed.
Story.
Andy Newport coming up trumps again, even when he's not on the hotline.
I'll tell you something else. I think Record Sport exclusively online today broke the news that Stuart Kettlewell was going to quit his position at Motherwell as well. So, there's a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there is indeed. And also on Record Sport Online today, Keith, I saw your online column, which I found a very interesting read. And I'm not just saying that because we are. I was going to say partners there, but you know what I mean.
Get ahead of yourself, Daniel.
We're online partners, if you will.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, obviously talking about what Rangers need to do really if they're to kind of haul Celtic back in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the gap now, when you look at the potential of Kieran Tierney and Jota teaming up on one flank, as we said, and Nicholas Coon and Alistair Johnson on the other. That's some serious firepower, isn't it, down both flanks. You just feel that the gap, and it was already a significant gap. When we look, we've had the discussion, Daniel, since the turn of the century, the amount of league titles that Celtic have amassed and stockpiled, and Rangers really aren't close. So there's already an established gap there. You feel now, I feel it's about to become bigger because of the work that Celtic are doing in this transfer window. And you look at the way Rangers have been run over the last 10 years, and I just feel, for me, it's crying out for some sort of restructuring, regime change, fresh input, fresh ideas. I just don't think the people that are in charge, Rangers just now, I don't think they can take it to Celtic. I don't think they can put up a fight. So I think the only way that Rangers can level the playing field, if you like, would have to be some sort of fundamental change at the top.
And do you see that?
Otherwise, Celtic disappear.
Aye. Do you think that's likely at all?
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting one, isn't it? You always hear people talk about acting in the best interests of the football club, etc., etc. You kind of get the feeling that the current structure at Rangers, there's some egos involved there. I think, who was it? Charles Green coined the phrase Rangersitis. These guys are they're not like that. They're not fly-by-nights. They're long-established, kind of well-meaning guys that certainly support the football club. But you kind of look at it now and you wonder if are they digging their heels in, or are they actively looking at ways of progressing the football club? Because this is an important moment for them. That Celtic might just get out of sight, and they need to try and find a way of refreshing, recalibrating their football club to stay competitive. Yeah.
AGSC, just to go back on Yefty, makes the point that Yefty rumoured to Chelsea was released in Brazil by an anonymous source called Mrs. Yefty has more. That might well be the case, but who knows? And that is on Reckon Sport Online now. If you want to read about that,
Mrs. Yefty, maybe she's the agent.
Maybe she went for a good commission. Right, Keith. We mentioned at the top, obviously, Stuart Kettlewell has departed Motherwell today, resigning.
Yeah.
As you say, it's a really bad one. The Motherwell statement today said Stuart explained that some of the personal abuse was now affecting his family to the point where they didn't wish to attend games. I mean, when it gets to that point, I mean, the guy is... in fact, let me just read. Bill says this better than I can. A lot of Motherwell fans should take a long, hard look at themselves, methinks. Well done. You've driven out our most stable manager we've had since Tommy McLean. I mean, 5th in the League Cup semi-finalists. It just seems way over the top.
Be careful what you wish for, isn't it? And it seems to be all based around they're not happy, they don't feel entertained by the style of football. And as I said, that's their prerogative. These guys pay their hard-earned every week to go and watch their team. They're not enjoying it. But the whole thing's unedifying, and you just don't expect that. Motherwell, kind of, I don't know how you would say it. It's almost like a family club, so it feels kind of dysfunctional when the fans are railing against a manager who's doing a very reasonable job. But there's a sort of nastiness that's crept into it. As I said to you, Daniel, I feared the worst when Stuart said some of the stuff that he said ahead of the weekend, kind of disrespecting the Motherwell fans or suggesting that they don't know really what they're talking about and they're not qualified to have an opinion. That, to me, was always going to leave him in a really awkward spot with the supporters. I don't know how you bridge that. Once you're turning fire on your own supporters, it was always going to be difficult. Obviously, results lately haven't helped matters. But I just feel it's just a little bit messy. I don't like it, and I wonder where Motherwell will go now. That's going to be an interesting thing. The supporters have expressed their voice, and because of that, they've lost their manager. So now, Motherwell will have to take a bad situation and give it a happy ending. And try and find the next man that can drive them on, and that's going to be interesting. There's already some interesting names. I think the 4 favourites at the bookies already: Neil Lennon, John McGlynn, Scott Brown, and Stephen Naismith. I think they're the 4.
Got a couple of comments saying that as well, Keith. I put the Lennon ones up. There's one, Scott Brown. This one, Tony, saying Callum Davidson, perhaps?
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a hard sell. Callum Davidson did a great job at St George's in terms of winning trophies and all, but it didn't end particularly well. Neil Lennon, every time he gets a job, he proves himself, doesn't he? He did such a good job at Hibs. He's over the course at Celtic. I'm sure that he would be a person of interest, and I'm sure that the job would interest him. Scott Brown's an exciting one, isn't he? Because of what he's doing at Ayr United right now. Would he want to kind of leave that behind when he looks as if he might be about to pull off quite an extraordinary feat by taking them to the verge of the top flight? Nobody would have seen that coming just 12 months ago, whatever. When he went to Somerset Park, Ayr United were just floating above the trapdoor, weren't they?
Yeah.
In trouble and in danger of being sucked into a relegation fight. And now here they are, chapping on the door, trying to get into the Premiership. So it'd be a difficult one for Scott Brown to leave that. But I guess if you're a young manager, you kind of also want to strike while the iron's hot. And his reputation has grown and grown week by week with what he's doing at Ayr United. So that's one to keep an eye on as well. Yeah, really interesting. Who would you go for?
Do you know, I just think winning the 2 cups at St Johnstone was such an achievement. I'd be tempted to go for Callum Davidson. I don't know. Okay, cheers.
Okay.
Ali says Billy Davis is coming back. Okay. I can't see that.
I'd be surprised if that was true. Ali.
John here saying, I don't think there's any fear that Neil Warnock will be back the road anytime soon. I don't think so, but that would be entertaining. So you never know.
Well, if the Motherwell fans weren't best pleased with Stuart Kettlewell and his version of football, I can't imagine that they'd be thrilled at the prospect of old Neil.
One Celtic fan here saying Neil Lennon wouldn't hesitate calling the Motherwell fans out. That has disaster written all over it. I mean, I agree. I think Neil Lennon is an underrated manager. I think he's a really good coach. I don't know if that would suit him, that job. I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but. Yeah,
well, do you know what? It's like any manager, when they spend a bit of time out, they're always desperate to get back in. They always believe, top managers will always believe in their own ability to turn things around and be more successful than the last guy. If Neil Lennon's got an ambition to go in at that level, then I think he's certainly somebody you want to have a conversation with.
Mm-hmm. Aye. And you can see Kaiser there in the comment section saying, as a budding manager, any promotion to SPFL would outweigh managing Motherwell. Maybe a tad too soon for Brown. Lennon is a good shout. If Scott Brown were to be offered it, Keith, I agree with you. I think it's very, very tricky. I don't know.
He's got a good relationship with the chairman at Ayr, who has really backed him to the hilt. He's been able to make some good signings. Even at the weekend there, who's the boy? Come on, help me out here. Curtis Main, they signed him from Dundee. That looks to me like an excellent signing. And it shows how seriously Ayr are taking, this potential chance at this shot at promotion. So Scott Brown has a good working relationship. He's been financially backed. And he's very close to pulling off something that would be almost miraculous if he could take Ayr United up.
I think it was not the 70s the last time they were in the top flight. Something like that, 77, I think, which is pretty
that
mad.
far back, but I mean, it would be a quite phenomenal achievement. So that is something that's, I guess, if you're Scott Brown, you weigh that up, don't you?
Yeah.
You've taken them this far. Do you stay around and try and finish off that job and achieve what many people would have thought might have been impossible? Or do you look, there's a fast track, I can go into a Premier League club? I don't know. There'll be a lot to weigh up. But again, there was interest in Scott Brown earlier this season from St Johnstone. And, if you recall, he was given permission to go and have a conversation about that one before deciding that it wasn't for him. So that tells you, doesn't it? He's obviously ambitious. He obviously does have an eye on getting into the top league. The question is, do you want to go into the top league under your own steam and take Ayr United up, or do you go a more established Premier League club? And Motherwell are, a very well-established Premier League club.
I guess time will tell.
I guess it will.
In the coming days and weeks. Keith, I think that brings us to the end of Monday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. The comments again, guys, have been absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate it. And we'll be doing it all again tomorrow night. So if you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so then. Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, and you.
And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.